How many of you know what mental fitness is, have come across the term, or think you have a sense of what I mean by mental fitness?
Hi.
You can physically put your hands up, you can put your electronic hands up. Okay, some of you. How many of you have considered how you can build your emotional resilience, how you can take action to build your mental fitness? Okay, again, some of you, that's good.
Yeah, I'm hoping to just get some advice.
And how many of you don't know or even care about mental fitness, have no idea how to build your resilience, and actually are wondering how you ended up here in this session? Okay, that's good. Not many of you. It means that most of you are in the right place. Firstly, thank you so much for investing your most valuable resource in being here today, which is your time. Time is the only resource you can't replace once it's gone. So you're investing something over the next hour, or some of you half an hour, because I notice some of you will need to leave shortly, that you're never going to get back. So I'm firmly committed with my colleague, Catherine. Catherine, give us a wave. Who's here to support you as well in this journey, to ensure you get as much value from this session as possible. I notice that there are many of you that have attended our sessions previously, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming back. And you'll know from previous experiences, if you have attended before, that our sessions aren't presentations. It's not a webinar. I'm not going to be just talking at you for an hour. This is a journey of exploration. There are some things that we're going to be sharing with you during the course of this session, but we also want to hear from you. We're not here to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. We're here to help you to figure out what is the best action that you can take for yourself and potentially for your colleagues, your family, your community, etc. So who are we? For those of you that haven't attended one of our sessions before or don't know anything about us, there are two sides to our organisation. We have a research and consultancy organisation called International Wellbeing Insights that came into existence in 2003. So we're in our 21st year with a vision of creating a happier, healthier, more resilient world. We work with organisations from all around the world. Some of our biggest clients include companies like Mars, Philips, and various other sort of global organisations on programmes around people, culture, and well-being. But kind of the core of what we're about is our non-profit arm, our charitable organisation, which is called the Stress Management Society, which essentially came into existence to raise awareness around the issues around stress and poor mental health and what we can do to take action against it, but also the ever-changing nature of the human experience. Oh, so we've got some background noise. Catherine, could you just mute the participants until they're sharing? Amazing, thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to ask that when you're not sharing, if you keep yourself in mute, particularly if there's background noise where you are, it just makes it easier for us to hear each other. And as I said, we've got a vision to create a happier, healthier, more resilient world. However, today, in January 2024, it feels like we are significantly further away from that goal than when we came into existence in 2003. How many would agree that the world feels like a stressful, challenging, overwhelming place right now? It feels like an episode of Black Mirror. Many of you have heard me use that analogy before. Going outside your front door seems to be more fantastic than anything that you can find on Netflix or Amazon Prime. There's no point going to the movies anymore because there is nothing that you can find in a movie that replicates the challenges of the world we find ourselves in. It's overwhelming. Which is why what we're here to talk about is even more important today than at any point in our 21-year history. So if you haven't already started to think about mental and emotional resilience and mental fitness, and you haven't started taking action against it, today's an opportunity for you to consider how do you take the first step on that journey. As I said, we've got a fair amount of experience of working with human beings from around the world and got a good understanding of the human experience. And really, that's what we're here to share with you today, is what is it to be a human in 2024? What are the challenges that we face, and what can we do to best equip ourselves, not just to cope with the things we're facing today, with any potential future challenges? Because I have no idea what's going to happen next. But science fiction is rapidly becoming science fact. So if we're not taking the time to develop a more robust toolkit, we might find that we will struggle. Some of you have already asked, and some have messaged in advance to ask, is the recording going to be available to people who weren't able to attend, or if you're not able to stay for the whole session? Absolutely, it is. It'll be uploaded to our website on the link that's on the screen. We will share that towards the end of the session. If you won't be able to stay to the end of the session, just jot that down, stress.org.uk/public. But if you forget to write it down, don't worry, we'll send you an email tomorrow with all the information, all the resources, and the recording as well. So remember, I said this is a workshop. We're here to talk about our experiences, the challenges we're facing, and try and collectively figure out how best we can navigate some of these challenges. This is not a lecture. And for it to feel like a safe space, if you're able to turn your camera on, that way if you're sharing, you can actually see that you're speaking to a real human being. It just allows us to build trust, particularly in this virtual world that we find ourselves in. Lots of questions are going to be asked throughout the session. Get involved. If you feel that there's something you'd like to discuss, share, or ask, you can jump on the microphone. This isn't my session, it's all of our sessions, and it's really great for me to see so many of you have shown up. We've got almost 400 people here, which is fantastic. So thank you all for participating and being here. But just to reiterate, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your questions. I want you to share your experiences. Disagree with me, seek clarification. Tell me to slow down. I'm from London. I get excited. I know we have an audience from all around the world today. So if you need me to slow down and repeat anything, whatever you need, myself and my colleague Catherine are here to support you over the next 45 minutes or so. So just a couple of ground rules to make sure we've got a safe space. When we're having discussions and kind of going into potential breakout sessions or anything like that, just ask you to be mindful of the time. If you're sharing, try and be succinct with your shares, because there's many of us and we want as many people to be able to share as possible. Also, I'm going to encourage you to be present. One of the things that I think is a significant challenge in the world we find ourselves in is being able to hold our attention. Some of you may have showed up for this session thinking you're going to work on that report on the other screen, or read something, or have this on in the background whilst you're doing something else. It's not that kind of session. It's a two-way discussion. So I'm going to ask you to approach today's session as a practice in mindfulness. What does mindfulness mean? Be present in this moment with no judgment. So be present to this conversation. What you put in will determine what you take out. So do your best to limit distractions where possible. Turn other technology on silent or off if you can. Participate, get involved. What you put in will determine what you get out. Be open, honest, respectful. People may share things that you don't like or don't agree with. That is okay. In fact, that is welcome. It is good to have differences of opinion. What we don't want is kind of homogenized viewpoints where everybody thinks, acts, and believes the same. Debate, discourse, and discussion is healthy for us to find the best way. But if someone does share something you don't like or don't agree with, that's absolutely fine. Allow them to have their perspective and you have yours. Spirit of forgiveness. Again, we find ourselves in a world where you might find that if there's someone that's sharing something that you don't like or don't agree with, they become the enemy. Whereas I don't necessarily believe that. I think if someone is sharing something I don't agree with or don't subscribe to, that's great. I would like to use that as an opportunity to understand where they're coming from or what their perspective is, and for them to potentially understand where I'm coming from. What else do we have? Confidentiality. What I do ask, if someone shares something of a personal nature, an experience, a story, something's happened to them, can I have your commitment that anything that's shared in this session stays here in this session, so we can create a safe space to the best of our ability, that you're not going to go off and put it onto LinkedIn or YouTube or TikTok after the session's finished. And beyond that, ultimately, as I said, like ensuring that you are taking responsibility for your experience here today. Whatever you need, feel free to raise those points at any time. And you can put information, questions, comments into the chat function. My colleague Catherine will bring some of that into the discussion. Yeah, beyond that, obviously, as I said, like you're free to jump into the microphone at any time. So let's start with the big question. What is mental fitness? What is mental fitness to you? So when you hear the term mental fitness, what comes up for you? So feel free to jump on the microphone or share your comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from some of you on the microphone. What is mental fitness? What does it mean? See a few hands up. Sarah, you've got your hand up. Sarah Hughes, is there something you'd like to share? See who else. Sue, you've got your hand up. Kevin and Wendy. You guys have got something to share? Feel free to jump on your microphone.
It's okay. I feel it's to do with if you're mentally robust, if you enter a situation where you don't feel overwhelmed or anxious about it. That's how I would define it.
Okay, yeah, mentally robust. I think that's a pretty strong definition. Who else would like to share? Those you've got your hands up, feel free to jump on. Helen, I've just seen your hand go up. Feel free to jump on your microphone.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think is recognizing that time when you are feeling overwhelmed, so you can just take a step back and just pull yourself back together and then be able to carry on again. You know, I'm constantly reassessing how I feel, on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis. Some days, you feel completely overwhelmed and you just have to go, right, I'm stopping and have a rethink. And that's part of keeping my mental health and well-being fit.
No, absolutely, and recognizing your capacity and capabilities. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Laura, I just noticed your hand went up as well.
Yeah, I would say like having a growth mindset when you're tackling challenges, and meditation as well. I think like daily guided meditation really helps mindsets, like strong minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that we will get into is the specific things that we can do to improve our mental fitness. I think at this stage, it's really, I think, key for us to have a definition that we can all subscribe to, what we mean by mental fitness. Because, we've all heard the terms, mental health and resilience. And that means different things to different people. This, for some of us, might be a new concept, this idea of mental fitness. And in the same way that if we talk about physical fitness, I'm sure you could all kind of give me a pretty strong definition for that. It's being strong, fit, healthy, looking after your body, exercising, eating well, etc. And it's interesting that when we look at physical health, people often think about the things that create physical fitness. But when we offer the term mental health, many people automatically assume we're talking about mental illness. How many would agree with that? The mental health is often seen as a negative, whereas physical health isn't necessarily seen as negative. It may be seen as a positive. It might be someone that's been healthy. And this is really why we wanted to change the narrative a little bit and not offer a term like mental fitness, because it's getting away from the stigma that many people have associated with the term mental health. So we can start looking at this as a positive thing rather than a problem.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is, would we be able to schedule it today, even if it was like set after the 30th?
Catherine, could you please mute the chat? I think we've got someone's having a conversation in the background. And Catherine, while you're there, do you want to bring in some of the comments from the chat? Is there anything specific that jumps out that you feel would be relevant to share with the group?
Yeah, so there was a lot of chat coming through. A lot of people were talking about resilience, the ability to cope with everyday stress, bouncing back from difficulties as well, being healthy, happy, and looking after yourself. So some really good ideas here.
Fantastic, thank you. So from our perspective, we've got some suggestions here as to when we think about mental fitness, what kind of things can we refer to? So the first thing is mindset and strategies. What is your state of mind? What is your mindset? How do you see or view the world? And absolutely, you can look at the same thing in many different ways. We can look at the world like a really challenging, stressful, overwhelming place, or we can look at it as a world filled with opportunities, a world filled with potential, strategies to be able to cope and to take action to build our resilience. Going back to Laura's point, things like mindfulness could be a strategy. Journaling, there are many different things that we can explore later in the session. Confidence, our ability to rise up to whatever challenges that are presented. Knowledge, information, and awareness. Our ability to navigate setbacks. It's not so much having setbacks that's the problem, it's how do we navigate those setbacks. And the fitter we are, so the mentally and emotionally fitter we are, the better equipped we are to navigate setbacks. Emotional resilience. So mental fitness is what's going on up here. Emotion is how I feel about the world in general. I've just seen a comment. Louisa, I noticed you mentioned you're struggling to hear me. Is everybody else having that problem? Can you all hear me fine? Okay, fantastic. So you might need to potentially log out, log back in. That might help to hear better. It's emotional resilience. Prioritizing. Right now, we find ourselves in a world where there is just way too much information. There's way too much going on. And you can't cope with it all. And, if you basically find yourself on social media, or on the news, on emails, on WhatsApp, and so on and so forth, the amount of information that is being pumped at you can be overwhelming. And within that information, there are often tasks or things to think about, things to take action against. And it's just not possible to do it all. So part of the mental fitness is being able to prioritize the things that are most important. So these are kind of the areas for us to consider. And while I try and move my slide. So essentially, physical fitness, just to offer the side-by-side comparison, physical fitness is essential for the body to function well. Physical fitness is building physical endurance, strength, and flexibility. Mental fitness is essential for the mind to function well. Emotional fitness is essential for us to be able to function as a sensitive sensory being in a world with a lot of emotional stimulus. And this assists us with clear thinking, making decisions efficiently, managing and rising to challenges, and being able to just cope with the day-to-day demands. And this is really where, offering kind of this framework side by side will help us to understand you cannot have physical fitness without mental fitness. Does that make sense? How many of you would agree with that statement? If you're mentally and emotionally compromised, that will affect your physical health, because you're not going to sleep well. You're not going to be motivated to exercise. You're not going to be able to nourish your body well. And even if you're putting the right things in your body might not be able to extract the nutrients and nourishment it needs from that food. The digestive system's not going to work efficiently. So, if we are mentally not in a great place, so our mental health is compromised, that will affect our physical health. But equally, how many would agree when your physical health is compromised because you're not sleeping well, because you're not exercising, because you're not eating well, because you're not getting out and doing your walking, do we agree that will affect our mental health? You cannot look at one without the other. But it's interesting that people tend to create a separation. They look at mental and physical health differently. What I'm here to say to you is, if you want to have optimal physical health, you need to have good mental health, which is why in professional sports now, there is a huge emphasis, whether it be football players or golf players, of working with psychologists, working with therapists, on working on the mindset. Because that is the only way to be able to achieve optimal health and fitness, is by working on both sides of the health coin. So part of this is to just give you a little bit of a framework. And for those of you who've attended our sessions before, you'll probably have come across this model, but I think it's important to reaffirm it, because for me, it's a really good way of being able to evaluate where you are. And our approach to well-being is what we call our bridge analogy. For the purposes of this discussion, I'd like you to visualize a bridge, any bridge, doesn't matter what bridge. It could be Tower Bridge in London, Goldgate Bridge, Sydney Harbour Bridge. The one that we've got on our visual here is Tower Bridge in London. And imagine on this particular day that Transport for London go on strike and park all their red double-decker buses onto the bridge. All of these buses are filled with union reps all sitting there discussing their various demands. We had a storm in London earlier this week, Storm Isha, I believe it was called, and that created some pretty heavy weather, winds and rain, which caused a tidal surge on the River Thames, which breached Thames Barrier. And there's a museum battleship moored up right next to Tower Bridge, which managed to get washed onto Tower Bridge. So you've got HMS Belfast sat there onto the bridge. The wind blew down the gates at London Zoo and all the animals rushed onto the bridge. We've got protesters on there that are protesting. We've had a lot of protesters for Palestine recently, so they found themselves onto the bridge. And we've got an emergency issue at Heathrow Airport. The airport shut down and landed a couple of Airbus A380s on top of the bridge. It doesn't matter how well constructed the bridge is. If I keep putting enough weight, enough load, enough demand onto the bridge, what will happen eventually? Any bridge on the planet, if enough pressure is applied for long enough, what will ultimately happen?
It will collapse.
It will collapse. Absolutely, it will collapse, right? Doesn't matter what the bridge is or how well built it is, it will ultimately collapse. But before it collapses, we will know it's not coping particularly well, because there'll be some signs. What will be those early signs? How will we get a sense that bridge isn't coping effectively? Cracking, absolutely, bowing, buckling, fractures, creaking. Lots and lots of feedback to suggest the bridge is not bearing that load effectively. When you get those early signs, you've got one of two things that you can do to prevent the bridge from collapsing. What are your options? What action could you take? Bridge hasn't collapsed yet, but
take
something off.
Take some of the pressure off and build the cracks.
Absolutely. Alleviate the load. Take some of those airplanes and the cruise ship and the HMS Belfast, some of the buses off there would be one option. The other option is reinforce the bridge. Concrete blocks, iron girders underneath to ensure the bridge is well equipped to bear that load effectively. You could do one, the other, or potentially both. Now, here's the thing. Human beings are exactly the same. I don't care who you are, how mentally tough, how resilient you are, how broad your shoulders are. Every single person on this planet has an ultimate break point. Every single one of us, if we have enough pressure and load and demand placed on us for long enough, we too, just like the bridge, will ultimately collapse. But again, just like the bridge, we will know long before the bridge is going to collapse that the bridge isn't coping, because there will be signs of bowing, buckling, groaning, creaking, fracturing. Now, when it comes to a human being, the examples of the bridge collapse can be severe. Can anyone give me some ideas of what could happen to a human being's bridge when their bridge collapses? Firstly, from a mental and emotional perspective, what kind of things could happen?
Mental breakdown.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Burnout or breakdown. Absolutely. And at extreme end of the example, mental emotional breakdown. From a physical perspective, what is the first organ in the body that experiences stress?
Brain?
It is not the brain, actually. The gut is a close second. It's the heart. Some of you correctly called out the heart. Absolutely. So even before we've picked up the brain has registered a stressful incident, your heart has reacted. So what do you think happens to someone that has excessive stress for extended periods of time if we know that the heart is the first place that experiences it?
High blood pressure.
It can cause high blood pressure, but ultimately, when we talk about
Heart attack.
heart attack,
Strokes.
heart attack, stroke. And what's interesting is if we talk about over the last 6 years, the 4 diseases that are responsible for more human deaths than any other: heart disease or heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Those 4 diseases are the primary reasons for a human being to die. Those are the diseases that kill more people prematurely than any other. Now, what's interesting is stress doesn't necessarily kill you, but it can trigger and lead to illnesses that will, if that makes sense. Would you agree, if you have high levels of stress, and we've got a lot of data to back this up now, that it can increase your chances of heart disease, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, stroke, or cancer, right? But also indirectly, it can contribute. Because would you agree, when you have a high stress lifestyle, you are less likely to exercise, socialize, sleep well, eat well, and do the things that bring positive health and well-being? So it's a double whammy. Directly, stress is impacting the way your body's functioning. Indirectly, it's changing your lifestyle, so you're less likely to do the things that bring positive health. Which is why many of us, when we are living a high stress lifestyle and we are not taking time to work on our well-being and our mental fitness, sadly are very slowly killing ourselves over an extended period of time. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to empower you. Your bridge is your responsibility. It is your job to keep that bridge strong. And this is really where, you know, it's interesting. Patricia, you just said we don't make the time. A lot of people say to me, I haven't got the time to look after myself. And actually, when I start suggesting the kind of things that people can do to, you know, improve their well-being, to increase their resilience, to manage stress, and I suggest to them, oh, you know, you need to get out and have, well, in fact, I'm not going to tell you. Let me ask you. Forget the mental health or mental fitness for a moment. Let's just come to physical health. If we had to talk about the top 4 things a human being can do to improve their physical health, you already all know the answers to this. What are the top 4 things? Let me kind of help you out here. I'll give you a couple of prompts. How much water should you drink?
2 litres.
2 litres, right? Most of us have heard that. It's commonly accepted information. Maggie, you've mentioned a few there. Sleep. Maggie, how many hours of sleep should you have in a night? 8, right? Again, we've all heard that. How many bits of fruits and vegetables? Now, I appreciate our UK audience will have a slightly different answer. People in different parts of the world have different information. But in the UK, what do they often tell us? How many bits of fruits and vegetables? You're all putting in 5, right? We've all heard this information, right? How many steps should you walk? Again, this is starting to become more commonly accepted information. 10,000, absolutely. Many of you are dropping in 10,000, right? So we know this. This is information that everybody has come across. Does knowing you've got to sleep 7 or 8 hours a night, walk 10,000 steps, eat 5 bits of fruits and vegetable, and drink 2 litres of water a day, does knowing that information do anything to improve your well-being?
No.
No.
Stresses me out because I'm not doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It only brings you benefit if you actually do it. The amount of people that come along to these kind of sessions, they hear the information, they roll their eyes to the back of their head and they say, I know that. Forgive me, with all due respect, I have no interest in what you know. 0 interest in what you know. I have maximum interest in what you do. Because the definition of madness is knowing something is important and brings you benefit and not doing anything with that information. Does that make sense? And we live in a world of information overload and everybody knows everything, but nobody does anything. No, okay, that's unfair. A lot of people do take action, but not enough. And this is really where it's not about me giving you new information. It's about removing the barriers to the things that you already know. Because if you get the basics right, everything else will follow. And when it comes to mental fitness, I will drop in things now, and a lot of people are like, I know that. You know, getting out and walking, again, is not just good for your physical health, it's also good for your mental health. Getting out for 10,000 steps, 45 minutes of walking in nature, getting some fresh air, even if it's cold and raining outside, get outside and get some fresh air. Journal, put some thoughts down in a book, get it out of your head and put it on a piece of paper. Meditate, as I think it was Louise said earlier, you know, have some time for mindfulness. Just stop and be present in this moment. Observe your breath. I could give all this information to you, and you know what many people would say? You're stressing me out, Neil. Why? Because I'm now asking you to find time to do 3, 4 other things when you feel like you haven't got the time to do the things that you've already got to do. So actually, some of the strategies to improve your mental health and mental fitness and your resilience, for many people, would actually cause stress, because it's now I've got to find the time to do these other new things in my life. The irony, right? So this is why, until we've tackled the barriers to the taking action against the things we already know, introducing new things is only going to create more resistance. So this is where, firstly, coming back to our bridge, if I can get the slide to move, our definition when it comes to mental fitness is where the resources or the capacity you have available is greater than the demand that you're being subjected to. So the reverse of the definition of stress. So when it comes to mental fitness, it's like, I have the ability to cope with whatever demand I'm being subjected to. And if I don't, then I've got some options. What can I do to build my mental fitness and my resilience so I am able to cope? So there's a couple of things for us to consider here. When it comes to physical fitness, it would be the same sort of categories: endurance, stamina, and physical fitness. So endurance, develop your skills to endure challenge on your bridge. Some of the things that we're facing, I have no idea when there is an end in mind. We've got cost of living crisis and this going on and war and etc. etc. There might not be an end. If you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, there is an end. Because in a short period of time, the saber-toothed tiger will catch you and eat you, and that's the end of the situation. Or you will escape or overpower the saber-toothed tiger, and again, the situation has come to an end. When we experience stress, nature expected there would be an end in mind to that experience of stress. Whereas many of us are finding situations where it's not a sprint. It's not like you run 100 meters, then you can just relax and collapse and just recover. Many of us are running not just a marathon, but an ultra marathon where you've just got to keep going. So you need to find your sustainable pace. So part of our mental fitness is finding our ability to be able to maintain ourselves at a pace of challenge and demand for extended periods of time. So this is where the next point, stamina, comes in, enhancing our stamina to be able to navigate setbacks, to be able to face up to new and unexpected things without then finding ourselves succumbing to burnout. But just like physical fitness, mental fitness requires regular practice and intentional development. So can you go to the gym once and then that's it? I'm done. I'm fit for the rest of my life. Is that how it works? Absolutely not. You know, you can't go for a run tomorrow and then never need to run again because you've done your work. But it's interesting the amount of people that will read a book, attend a seminar, come to a workshop like this, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, I did a stress management, resilience, mental fitness workshop in January 2024. I never need to worry about that again. It's not how it works. Obviously, this can inspire action, but it's your job to then not just to take action, but consistently take action until it becomes second nature, until the activities that you've built into your daily routine to build your mental and emotional fitness are as second nature as brushing your teeth, showering, and having your lunch. And this is really what for me this process is about. So we are then better equipped to handle setbacks, stay motivated. And yes, obviously there'll be those days where, just like, you know, there's those days where you kind of get up and you're not feeling particularly great, and you know, you don't make it to the gym, but you get back on it the next day, or the you know, that weekend where you go out and you have one glass of wine too many and the cream cake and the pizza, but that's not your normal behavior, then you go back to kind of eating a healthy, balanced diet for the rest of the week. And this is really what, for me, what this process is about, is how we're resetting our default behaviors and essentially adopting the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you have proactive, positive strategies that are scheduled and are part of your daily routine. And Bree, as you're saying, having a fitness routine helps you to have a healthy body and mind. But I would extend that. The fitness routine, I'm not just talking about the physical fitness routine, I'm talking about the mental and emotional fitness routine as well. So this is really where I want us to start kind of getting into exploring some specific ideas. So the first thing is the initial sort of reactions, the negative thoughts that tend to come to mind, are where, for many of us, the process goes wrong. Is your first reaction to a challenge is, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Or this is too much, I can't cope with this. Or, you know, I feel worthless, or nobody cares what I've got to say. No one's asked for my opinion. How many of you can relate to this? Like, your first reaction when there's a challenge or something comes up is your brain is trying to talk you out of it. Kirsty, I saw your hand go up. Would you like to share anything around that, sort of your experience with this?
No, sorry, I've just meant to agree that I feel like that all the time.
No worries. Thank you. Has anyone got anything that you'd like to share around kind of how your brain has been trained through negative experiences to offer you an automatic negative thought? Because for me, when we're looking at mental fitness, that's kind of where it starts, is when we are not fit. It's kind of like if I was to ask you to go out and run 5 kilometers or 5 miles, whatever. If we're not physically fit, your natural reaction is, oh my God, I can't bloody do that. There's no way I can run 5 miles. So your brain is already talking you out from it. Jenny, you've got your hand up. Would you like to share?
Yeah, so basically I have this thing called imposter syndrome, okay? So what it means, long story short, is that I never believe that I can achieve, yeah? I don't believe in myself, like, ever. And it is all to do with your mental health, not necessarily, you know, what you were saying, the way that you explained it. But I've gained so much confidence that I believe that I'm changing through I've done a LEAP course this year. I started doing a workplace apprenticeship and having mentors there, you know, just enforcing the fact that you can do it, you are doing it, look at yourself, you know. A lot of the changes in me have been about self-reflection. And yeah, people get things wrong day in, day out, but for me to get my health up there compared to where I was at the beginning of starting my course, it's a complete flip around the change. I use this thing as well called Balance, an app that has been provided by the business for free for us for a year, and that's got like sleep stories and stuff like that. And often when I do get a bit of anxiety in the evenings, I listen to the sleep stories, and it completely changes my mindset. It's really good.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for sharing. And it's interesting. You know, what I would say is behind every negative thought or behavior, there's a positive intention, right? So say that again, behind every negative thought or behavior is a positive intention. If your brain is saying to you, no, don't say anything because you might look stupid, or I can't cope with this, or this is too much. What do you believe might be the positive intention behind my mind coming up with thoughts that are trying to talk me out of taking action or showing up?
That you want to do it.
Yeah, well, actually, my brain is trying to talk me out of it. Why might my brain trying to talk me out of taking action or stepping up or showing up?
Because you don't believe you can, maybe. Sorry.
Isn't it protection?
Absolutely. So I didn't see who said that. Who said that?
It's Maxine. Hello.
Hi. Sorry.
Hi, I said it first.
Oh, okay. So whichever one you said it, what is it trying to protect you from?
I think other people's opinions, maybe negative criticism can be one. Don't want to be
failure.
Yeah, absolutely. Failure, looking silly, getting hurt, making a mistake, getting it wrong. right? But actually, it's also talking you out of growing, stepping outside your comfort zone. And yeah, you might get it wrong, but you might get it right. And even if you get it wrong, how many degree you might learn more from getting it wrong than if you got it right? So actually, our brains, from a safety perspective, well, more specifically, our egos are trying to keep us safe by keeping us where we are. And actually, one of the things about mental fitness is we need to stretch ourselves. If you lift a weight that's easy, do you get much benefit? No, you have to lift weights that are heavier than what is comfortable, because that's where the growth happens, because you are challenging yourself. And it's also the same with mental fitness. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to be in a place of a little bit of discomfort, because if we don't have discomfort, we are not growing. So this is one of the things that is crucial, is that we are challenging ourselves. So when you have those negative thoughts, what do you think are things that we could do to challenge those negative thoughts? This comes down to a bit of internal self-dialogue. So Chantal, I've just seen your hand go up. What can we do to challenge our internal dialogues?
Yeah, so hopefully I'm going to capture everything that's just being said. So basically for me, kind of what you're talking about in terms of the initial, like, first negative fear is that, well, yeah, it is, your brain does go protection mode automatically. And for me, it's about, I don't know, detaching from that. And just saying, you know, no, I can do this, and not giving into fear, because obviously, you know, things are a bit different today, you know, and we've got technology, so it looks different compared to when, you know, we're getting chased by a tiger or something like that. So it's just about kind of measuring it, realizing that, no, your brain is just trying to protect you and not necessarily believing in that fear. Do you know what I mean? And trying to detach. 100%. I can't really explain it any other way, but yeah, so it's, yeah.
You're spot on, Chantal. The way I would encourage you to approach this is the way that I approach it, is have a bit of internal self-dialogue where my brain is saying, oh my God, don't say that, or don't do that, or you're going to look like an idiot, or you're going to get it wrong. Being able to turn around to your ego and saying, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I appreciate and understand what you're trying to do, but you can take this moment off because I got this. I can handle it. I know that sounds crazy, like you're, you know, electively schizophrenic and having an internal dialogue with yourself, but actually it really works, because that part of me that has a positive intention, it's like, I know what you're doing and I understand why, and I know you've got a positive reason behind this approach. Like, you know, let's say you want to ask someone out on a date, or you're putting yourself forward to a job which is, you know, a little bit outside of your area of expertise. Your brain will try and talk you out of it, your ego will try and talk you out of it, but being able to allay your ego's fears, it's okay, I can handle it. That can be really powerful. Can anyone else suggest, Zoe, I've just seen your hand go up. Anyone else suggest any other ideas around this?
I think I've spent years, I got very liberated when I turned 50. And it is just sort of like, I wish I'd felt like this in my 30s. So if someone is going to ask that question, it will be me, because I need to understand that. And I'm not that I'm not bothered about other people's opinions, but my need to get it right overrides that. But that has been a lot of work that I've done on myself. For me, it's not, it probably is the protection thing, but for me it's trigger from trauma in my work life. But now what I do when I'm going to react and it's saying, you can't do this and you can't do that, is I pause. Why has this triggered me? Follow it back to its source, and then go, okay, now I understand, but that's in the past and this is what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. There was a TV program, I think it was Little Britain, I can't remember, again, for this made me lost on some of our international audience, but there was this character, and he, or was it Harry Enfield maybe, and it's like, you don't want to do it like that, you want to do it like this, and he would literally be poo-pooing every idea you come up with. When I've got that voice in my head, I give him that accent. So it's literally that voice is saying to me, you don't want to do it like that, you want to do it like this. And it makes me laugh. And it no longer has any power because it just sounds ridiculous. But here's the thing. According to the University of Southern California, the average person has 70,000 spontaneous thoughts every single day. And some of those, I saw a Ricky Gervais set recently, and some of those are atrocious thoughts. No one will ever admit to having these thoughts, but it's like you're standing on a tube platform. It's like, what would happen if I pushed everyone in front of the train? Now, again, that's a ridiculous thought. And, you know, we can all deny that we've had crazy thoughts. Hopefully no one's had a thought like that. But there are these crazy thoughts. You're like, where did that come from? Why have I got this? Is there something wrong with me? Why have I got this mental thought in my head? But it happens. We can deny they happen, but they do. Actually, by being able to understand that 99% of people that have these crazy random thoughts are not going to do anything with them. They come in and they just leave, right? I'm actually scared for when mind-reading technology comes in, because apparently, according to Elon Musk, it's about 5 years away. We can read people's thoughts. I don't want to know people's thoughts because people have crazy thoughts. And the research has shown that. And up to 70% of the spontaneous thoughts that we have are negative ones. Why is that? Chris, you got your hand up. What are your thoughts around this? That we have these crazy thoughts that pop into our head, and most of them, they're gone as quickly as they come in. But why is the vast majority of them negatives? Chris, you got some thoughts on that? You got your hand up. Chris Wood.
Sorry.
That's all right. Go for
Sorry about that. Are they negative thoughts though? Or I'm just going to share an experience. We had a young lad working in the company who was very autistic. You know, there was lots of personal issues there for him and his family, but a great young personality once you got to know him. And part of his coping mechanism for everything that we've discussed so far was to write it down on a piece of paper.
Great.
Okay, that was his way of coping with it. He had the thought, he wrote the thought down on the bit of paper, made him feel better. He was able to move on. One day, somebody who didn't know, who didn't understand, who wasn't, you know, eyes wide open, had blinkers on clearly, saw this little quote on the piece of paper, and it caused so much drama for this young man because he had the thought that I hate this place and I want to burn in building down.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't have that capacity in him. He was still a young, loving person, young man. But because he'd written it down, somebody picked up on that, and then that takes his coping mechanism away from him, because now he feels like he can't write it down. You know, it's not, I'm going to act on it. That's just how I feel right now. I'm not saying, it doesn't say, I'm going to burn the building down. It says, I feel like burning the building down and everyone in it. You know, Obviously, it's quite a distressing statement to make from anybody. But again, you know, why am I back in front of one of these sessions? Why am I here? I'm mentally health first trained. I've been on a couple of your sessions now. I've also linked to other sessions. Am I going to keep linking to sessions? Yeah. Why? Am I the oracle of mental health or fitness or well-being? No. Do I learn something new every day? Whether you think it or write it or say it, it's irrelevant, really. It's the learning process. I wrote something down earlier on with something, another link that you made. Stop, think, act, review, keep trying. You know, I'm 47 in a few months' time. I'm not going to get it right. Nobody's going to get it right. And I find that, especially with you guys and the sessions and how you put them on, it is about, come on, we're a group, we're a family. Let's all talk about it. It's not me sitting up here telling you how it is, because I want to learn from, you know, and that gives you the opportunity then to breathe and engage with people. And listen, change is inevitable.
Of course.
So whether you want it or you don't want it, it's going to happen. So instead of, like you said, turn a negative into a positive, instead of making it a negative, or which it's come across as, make it your positive and say, well, actually, change is coming. Don't necessarily agree with it, but now I'm going to control the situation and I'm going to get involved. I'm going to be part of that. You know, it's about growth, it's about learning. And for me, you know, my mental health is every day, and being a mental health first aider, the hardest thing to do is not be emotionally involved. And you know, when you've got a real person sat in front of you or a real person on the end of the phone, it's hard not to be emotionally involved. These people are being open, honest, they've found confidence in you. You know, it's very, you know, that's my hardest battle with mental health is not being emotionally involved with others. But by being emotionally involved, it affects my mental health. So I'm still in the transition of trying to find a happy place to sit in that I can be there for other people, but also I can monitor and change my mental fitness and my mental health as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Chris. And you know, just to pick up the quote that you made there, that change is inevitable. I agree. Change is inevitable. In fact, change is necessary. We need change. Suffering is optional. And there are far too many of us that are struggling and suffering as a result of the incessant and increased levels of change that we're experiencing. Well, one of the other things that you shared there around sort of the thoughts that people, you know, if we were all writing our thoughts down, some of us, or many of us on a day-to-day basis will have some extreme and extraordinary thoughts. Sometimes we surprise ourselves with the thoughts that we have. And, you know, that's why I just want to speak to that directly. You know, having the thought isn't necessarily a negative. It's being able to acknowledge that sometimes we have these thoughts and they exist for a reason. Very few of us are going to take action against those thoughts, but it's being able to acknowledge that and understand where that comes from. It's a primal, primitive thing. Our brains have been designed to keep us safe from danger. And you know, that's kind of where some of these negative thoughts are coming from. There is a positive intention behind them. So part of this is to consider, how can we reframe that? How can we look at ourselves, the world around us, and the future in a way that doesn't necessarily trigger up a negative thought, but brings up hope that things can get better? Because these thoughts can affect us. They can prevent us from taking action, or they can encourage us to take negative action. So part of building the mental and emotional fitness is to be able to challenge ourselves, to be able to have that internal self-dialogue where when that initial thought is offered, it's like, well, okay, I appreciate where you're coming from. I understand why you're suggesting this or giving me this thought or this idea, but I can approach it in a different way, or I can handle it, or I'm going to take time to approach this in a slightly different manner. And this is really where, you know, with the few minutes we've got left, I want to share some initiatives or ideas to build mental fitness. Those thoughts, and, you know, as Chris shared with his colleague, writing down the thoughts so they're not overwhelming him in his mind on a piece of paper can be really valuable. If you don't have a journal, I encourage all of you to journal every day, whether that's to just write down 3 or 4 things that you're grateful for every day at the end of the day before you go to sleep. Or if there are things that come up, or strong negative thoughts or feelings or perspectives come up, put it down on paper. Just to articulate on a piece of paper, you yourself have to start thinking about things in a slightly different way. You can become your own best therapist, coach, or counselor by having some time to be able to sense check, to do some self-awareness and journal. It gives perspective and allows you to reframe some of the thoughts and feelings that you're experiencing. And this is very, very important as part of your mental fitness. Mindfulness isn't necessarily sitting under a tree like Buddha chanting Om. That's great if you can, but mindfulness could be literally, I'm sitting here right now just watching my breath. I'm focused on something that is real and that's happening right now. Most of us spend our lives in the past or the future. We're either thinking about things that have to happen or haven't happened yet, or we're stressed and worried and over upset about things that have already happened. Bring yourself back to this moment. They call this moment the present because it's a gift. I know that's really cheesy. I apologize, but it's true. And most of us don't spend anywhere near enough time in this present moment. In fact, when I exercise, the amount of people that I see have got headphones on, looking at a screen, they're not present to the act of exercising. Research has shown that people that are mindful in their fitness and exercise practice, whether it's doing yoga, lifting weights, running, they actually have improved athletic experiences because their body is able to approach the act of physical activity more effectively when you're present to what's happening. Does that make sense? Most of us don't live our lives mindfully. So mindfulness is when you go for a walk at lunchtime today, leave your phone and your headphones behind and just listen to the wind and the birds and the leaves rustling in the wind and feel the sun or the wind on your face. And by being present, you get much more benefit from that experience, and it becomes an act of mindfulness. Gratitude, we've already spoken about the fact that if you consume the news and spend a lot of time on social media, you're programmed to believe the world is a bad and challenging place. By actually programming our mind to look for things to be grateful for, we start to reframe the world into being a more positive place. Physical activity, I'm going to change the word exercise to physical activity. That could be, you know, park the car a little bit further away when you go to the supermarket or when you get to work. Get off the bus or the train and stop earlier. You know, use the stairs instead of the lift. Go to the toilets on the other side of the building. You know, move your body. If that involves exercise, great, but there are other ways to get physical activity into your life. Sleep. When it comes to mental fitness, how many would agree that you're mentally and emotionally nowhere near as strong when you're tired and you haven't slept well, right? If you want to know more about this, I encourage you to pick up Matt Walker's book, Why We Sleep. That, for me, is probably one of the best books you can read about sleep. But essentially, ensure that you get enough sleep. A lot of people say, I haven't got enough time to sleep for 7 or 8 hours. Now, firstly, the amount of sleep you need is unique to each individual. Some people can function really well on 6.5 to 7 hours sleep. Some people need more. Find out how much sleep is optimal for you by testing it out over a period of time. But make sure you have a wind down routine, that you switch off and you get ready for bed, you get your sleep and wake up feeling rested and refreshed, because everything is easier and you get more done and you're more focused and more effective when you're well rested. And the other thing, social connections. I'm talking about actually human relationships, meeting up with friends and family in person, not Zoom or Skype, but actually having tactile relationships with people in your life. When I talk about tactile, I'm talking about people you can see, that you can hug, you can talk to, that you can sit over a table and have a drink or a meal together. We need that. And we, particularly over the last 3 years, have you noticed that human interactions have diminished as we're descending more and more into a virtual world? When it comes to work, less and less of us are actually turning up to a physical workplace and having direct connections with our colleagues. And also that's happening in our personal lives as well. So the question I leave you with is, what action are you going to take to build your mental and emotional fitness? The take-home message is the mental fitness requires regular practice, intentional development. It requires reprogramming your beliefs and your subconscious behaviors. Get your subconscious to be your ally rather than talk you out from taking action. And when it's your ally, it will help you to build mental and emotional fitness. It will improve your emotional regulation. It will help you to be more resilient and be able to respond to demands and challenges more effectively. Because rather than that initial reaction of trying to talk you out of it, it will be encouraging and supportive. So this is really kind of your homework. Your next step is to consider how to build mental endurance and stamina, how you're going to build your mental and emotional fitness, and what action you're going to take, and how are you going to make a commitment to that. Put it in your diary. Tell your partner, your children, your colleagues, and get them to hold you accountable and support you. Encourage each other. As ever, we're always going to share the resources that are available should you find that you're struggling right now. They're on screen. This handbook or this slideshow will be shared with you all after this session. For those of you interested in taking the next step, we have our Mental Health Champions program starting on the 20th of February, so it's just over a month away. We will send you some more information about this in the email that we'll send as a follow-up today. But also, our friends at the Resilience Agenda have these. In fact, Catherine or Johnny, can you bring me a copy of the Resilience Agenda, please? So we've got these diaries, these journals. For those who don't have a journal, and we've got these wonderful little journals that our friends at the Resilience Agenda put together. And it's basically a lot of the things that we've spoken about nice little actual physical book, not electronic one, where you can hold yourselves accountable. They're giving 20% off as a gift for attending this workshop. You don't need to buy one, but if you'd like more information on that, there's a URL there. There's a code there where you can get 20% off. So it saves you £5. And we'll send that out on the email to you tomorrow as well. We have got to the end of the time that we had allocated, but I will stay on if anyone has any questions, comments, feedback, anything you'd like to discuss or share before we close. I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes. So what would you like to share? What did you like about today's session? What are you taking away? What questions or feedback do you have before we close? Enjoy the walk, Patricia. Thank you, Deborah. I will definitely send your CV to us and pass on to HR.
It's been so nice to be on a webinar where I feel validated, where I feel heard, and where I feel like an adult and capable of interacting with people rather than just being talked at. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome, and I appreciate you sharing that. That means a lot. Wonderful. And I just want to thank you all for investing your most valuable resource, your time, in being here today. As I said, I'm totally happy to hang out for a few more minutes for anyone's got any questions, anything you'd like to talk about or share. So feel free to stay in if you'd like to. But if you need to jump off, have a wonderful day. We have our next webinar in exactly a month's time. Details of that will be in tomorrow's email as well, so you can put that in your calendar. These will always be free sessions, so feel free to share this with friends, family, colleagues. There will be a recording that goes out, and we will always ensure that our monthly sessions are completely free of charge. So we're here to support you in any way that we can.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil, could you just repeat the author and the name of the book that you were mentioning earlier?
There's no author. It's a company called Resilience Agenda. Catherine, could you just drop the URL in and the code? It's not actually a book. It's just kind of a kind of a journal where you can kind of log your gratitudes, the actions that you're committing to build your mental fitness. It's just holding you accountable. I find physical books are really nice. There's loads of apps out there, but for me, the act of like pen and paper makes it a little bit more powerful. So they're great little things. You could just do it in an empty journal. You don't necessarily need one of these, but it's kind of got the prompts in there, if that makes sense. And it looks nice, and that makes me want to pick it up and write in it.
Neil, I've actually purchased one from the last meeting, and it's brilliant. It really is a good book to have.
Ah, fantastic. Excellent. Yeah, I've been using mine as well. I've been on holiday for the last 3 weeks, and literally every day I was writing in it and found it really, really useful.
And as a mental health champion within my company, it's on the 1st of Feb, it's Time to Talk Day.
Yes.
But I've extended that to every Thursday of the whole of February. We're going to be doing walk and talk.
Fantastic.
So,
well done, Bianca.
At 12 o'clock, we'll all, whoever's in the office on that day or those that are working from home, will get on the Teams and we will actually go for a half-hour walk all together, so that we're all getting our steps in, and we all just get the chance to speak to each other than work focused, and gives you time to talk to others about what potentially is going on in your mind, etc. And then for March, I've done a monthly focus of no biscuits or chocolates are to come into the office for breaks. So we're going to do Healthy Eating Month.
Excellent. Well done. I love the fact that you've really embraced your role as a mental health champion, and it's fantastic to see, often we don't necessarily see our champions as much after they've qualified. So it's great that you've joined the session and you really are taking action. So that's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Celia, you've got your hand up. Is there something you wanted to share? I hope I pronounced it.
Hi. Yeah, Sadia, that's fine. Thank you for your time. It was just a really quick question. I've worked probably like a lot of people on a lot of different ways to manage my time and balance and all that sort, as we do in life. And I'm really good at planning it. However, one thing that I usually struggle with is, and I know it's not, you can't predict it, is kind of other people's or things that just come up in the day. Now, obviously, I'm aware that every day is different. And as I said, things just come up randomly and you put boundaries in place of what you say yes and no to. But aside from being okay with the unexpected and boundaries, would you suggest any other top tips with that? Because that's one of the things that I'm like, I've ensured I've got this break, I've done this, I've put this in, but then my time gets kind of chopped into by an urgent priority at work or someone that needs my help. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So yeah, that's all of my question.
I think the key thing is there isn't a one size fits all solution. We're all kind of needing to find the way that works best for us. But something that you might want to consider is that little word that, even though it's one of the shortest words in the English language, is one of the hardest ones for many people to use, which is the word no. But I'm going to give you a reframe for the word no. Rather than no being sod off, leave me alone, don't want to help you, don't want to support you, don't want to listen to you, consider no as an acronym rather than a word. NO standing for negotiation opportunity. So next time someone approaches you with something they need help or support with, or they need your time, or they need your energy, is actually helping them to understand sort of where you are right now, what I'm currently dealing with, what's on your bridge, what is it you'd like me to do? Do I have the capacity to help you right now? Can we come back to this at a later point? Or is there something that I'm currently dealing with that I could deprioritize so I can deal with this new task? So I'm willing to help you, but we need to negotiate an outcome that works for both of us. And I think this is something that, as I said, it kind of falls under the boundaries, but this is more now I'm proactively trying to have a discussion with you to find a way that works for both of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful, actually. Yeah, reframing that word. Yeah, I'm good at saying no, but I think sometimes we have that, oh my gosh, no, but it needs to be done. Do you mean like, oh, I have to prioritize? Do you know what I mean? And that almost comes in above my reasoning. So yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. So thank you very much.
Well, most welcome. Good luck with that, and I hope to hear on next month's webinar how you got on with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Fantastic. Well, unless anyone else has any final questions, comments, or feedback, or anything else you'd like to share, I will very shortly be closing this session. Looking forward to seeing you all next month, and look out in your inboxes for the follow-up message which will come tomorrow, which will have all the additional information on it. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your month, and yeah, I'm really grateful that you were all able to attend. Oh, Julie, I've just seen your hand go up. Is there something you wanted to share or ask before we